It was a startlingly beautiful day when I last saw my best friend, Achilles Sorensen. He and I had served together in the sole combined forces as Marines decades before. Then years later, after we both finished our terms, I ran into him while working private security for an ambassador from my homeworld. Ironically, he was working security for a diplomat from Seoul. We met for drinks and favours after our ships had finished, and caught up. It felt just like our old times in the Corps. As we were talking and getting progressively more intoxicated, we agreed that we should join one of the freelance crews after our current contracts were over. There was more money, more freedom, and you didn't always have suits breathing down your neck. So, a couple years later, that was what we did. My mate and pups enjoyed the new lifestyle upgrade. I was getting paid more, and I was able to take vacations more frequently. Achilles' wives and husband had similar sentiments, and his children were just as happy to see more of their father. Things were going well. Eventually we moved far enough up the ranks that we were given operational control of an entire subsector. I was the sectoral chief, and Achilles was my XO. We had both agreed on the promotion. I'd always been better at taking charge, and Achilles had always preferred to do the dirty work. Together, our subsector saw an increase in successful missions, and as a result, received increased contracts. My mate and his spouse were friends. We often shared dinners and went to local events together. Our children were raised as though they were siblings, or at the very least cousins. It was a good life. His parental group had named him after a warrior hero from an ancient Greek tragedy. This hero was known for great strength, speed, and skill in battle, as well as being all but invincible. The Achilles that I knew seemed to match the legend. I had seen him go through countless battles and emerge all but unscathed. I had seen him rush headlong into danger with hardly any hesitation. His skill with both firearm and disruption blade had always carried him through. He even survived the crash of a landing craft after it had been shot out of the sky by enemy intercepting fire. I thought my best friend dead until I'd seen him and two others blast their way out of the side of the downed craft and then fall their way towards a nearby medical craft while carrying the few other survivors. There were times when it seemed as though I was fighting the hardest I possibly could, just to keep up with him. He was fast. He was strong. He was so tough that he could almost seem invincible. He was fearless. And the most amazing thing was, I met other humans who seemed very nearly as mythically powerful as he. I'd read tales and action reports of humans who accomplished things that made his actions seem paltry by comparison. But very few of them were my friends. And none of them were my best friend Achilles Sorensen. That was why I was here on this day. He had gotten the diagnosis a year beforehand. A routine yearly checkup had resulted in some abnormal numbers from his blood sample. Further testing confirmed that he had contracted that ancient Terran killer, the one that they had never managed to fully eradicate, the one that can only truly be stopped via incredibly taboo genetic editing. But Achilles, being who he was, he showed no fear of the diagnosis. His position in our company gave him a great income, and our subsector's core world had fantastic medical facilities. He assured everyone that he could fight this disease and that he would win. But I'd known him longer than anyone else at the company. Longer than anyone except his primary spouse. I saw the cracks in the facade. I saw the hint of fear. And for the first time since our first deployment together, I felt it too. The sickness spread like a poison tide within him. The doctors cut it out. They bombarded it with radiation. They blasted it with surgical lasers. They filled his blood with toxins to try to kill it. And still, it spread. With each passing week I saw Achilles, great modern recreation of that ancient warrior that he was, grow weaker. His skin began to lose the tan that his kind gets from stellar radiation. His hair eventually fell out. He became tired and more lethargic. Bags formed under his eyes, as though all the weariness of his decades of adventures had finally caught up to him. He became physically weaker, as the treatments made exercise less frequent and more difficult for him. It was like he had become a ghost of his former self. But he still always smiled, joked, and was always willing to have conversations with anyone and everyone, just like he always had. Until 3 months ago, when the doctors required that he stay home, and that he be kept in a sterile room. His immune system too compromised to risk going out anymore, or having anyone over. We would video chat, oftentimes while I was in our office. And now, just 2 days ago, they had ordered that it was no longer necessary, that he should invite anyone who wanted to see him again to stop by. Everyone knew what that meant. My mate joined me on the trip. I let her sitter watch the pups. I didn't want them to see their uncle like this. Our families let us have some time together. I gave him the bottle of whiskey he'd always liked, one last gift for my friend. We talked about the old days. We joked about some of the insane things we'd survived together, spoke of friends from our old units, and young guns from our current company. We reminisced about the ones who didn't make it. He seemed to go stronger with each second that we spoke. I saw that spark of the old warrior I'd known for so long. I joked that a nice toupee might just complete the illusion. He laughed so heartily at that. Then the laughter became coughs, and I felt bad. It was painful to see him like this, but it was necessary. I couldn't let my friend leave without seeing him one more time. I couldn't do that to him. Not to Achilles. Not to my brother. After a while I helped him up, and he joined us all for dinner in their living room. There were stories, jokes, laughter. It felt like any other dinner we had ever had together. He poured some of the whiskey out into shot glasses and evac cups for us, and we had a great time. We didn't talk about the thing that hung over everything else. Before we departed, Achilles pulled me aside and hugged me. We'd hugged before, but this was different. I could feel him fighting, always fighting, to keep from sobbing. I felt the tears still managed to escape and roll down the fur on my shoulder as he lost that particular fight. I would have joined him in this if I could. When we left, I felt a great pain in my soul. My eyes attempted to do something I had seen so many humans do during their final moments, or after learning of the loss of someone close to them. They tried to do something that they were anatomically incapable of. That was the last time I ever saw Achilles alive. I envy humans for their ability to cry, and I envy them for their short lifespans. They always seem to pack so much life into them, yet they always seem to end far too soon. Now I must live out the rest of my days without the company of my brother.